As we observe the inflow and the outflow of our breath, we may find that our mind is wandering. So rather than being harsh on ourselves, just smile and let's remind ourselves that we need to focus on our breath. Now let's shift our attention to observing the sensations in our body, and let's begin by observing the sensations in our head. Observe any sensations that you can feel in your head area. Now observe any bodily sensations in and around the face area. Now notice any sensations near the neck or the back of the neck. Now notice sensations in and around the chest area. Now try to notice any sensations in your right arm. Now shift your attention to the left arm. Now try to notice any sensations in the lower abdomen.
Helpful to notice the sensations and also notice their changing nature. Okay. So focus attention so that you can see the change in them. So that the idea of impermanence, the law of impermanence becomes evident. So you can speak that also. Okay.
Now try to observe sensations in your back area. Now try to observe bodily sensations in your right leg. Now shift your attention to the left leg. Look for any sensations that you might be feeling in your feet. As we complete the body scan, you can bring back your attention to any area of the body where you might have felt any sensation very strongly or very prominently and see if it's still there. If it's not, it indicates to the impermanent nature of these bodily sensations.
Good. See, the impermanent nature can be experienced at every moment. Suppose you take your attention on any part of the body and just wait for a few seconds. So do it just now. So keep your attention on the, say, palms of the hands, say, right hand palm, and see what you feel. And see whether that feeling is constant or is it changing. So can you detect that it is changing? So at every moment, whenever you feel anything in the body, you can wait for a few seconds and actually experience the changeful nature of the experience. You can verify the insight of impermanence at a microscopic level. Similarly, when we see the breath, I had mentioned, you should see the whole duration of the breath and see that it's rising, entering nostril, then stopping. That should also be noticed. Stopping of the breath for a second or few seconds, and then starting again and keeping on going out, and then stopping at the out breath. So in this way, you notice the complete cycle of the breath, and that enables you to get more and more concentrated, more collected mind. Okay, so the instructions should be given accordingly. Good. So you can open your eyes and you can start our discussion. And Rani was there, but she's gone. Can you just check up with the other part, more and one more student who's not present? Arunima, is that right? That right? Just
Yes.
send them a message that or just call them and send if they're free to join or not. Yesterday we started discussion on the mental health and sickness as understood in the Buddha's teachings, and recognized that according to that mode of teaching, all of us are mentally unhealthy because we all have a sense of self. And therefore, the differences between people are only of degree, not of kind. It's not that some are unhealthy and some are healthy. And that itself makes a lot of difference. Then we try to identify the personality types and what are the tasks associated with the greedy type, aversive type, and deluded type. And this was a kind of recommended meditations for each type. And we saw typical examples of what is the cognitive therapy. How do you change the relationship with thoughts? And we illustrated with their story and then basic teaching of Four Noble Truths. And then reflection of certain fundamental truths, for example, of aging, illness, and death. And what they're going to help us, I hope you already can recognize. What does these reflections help us in overcoming the sense of self? That's indicated in this slide. So when you think about aging, the pride of the youth gets reduced and diminished. When you think about illness, the pride about the health is diminished. When you think about death, the pride about life is diminished. When you think about inevitable separation from dear people, the desire and attachment to them is reduced. And when you think about the fact that I am going to reap the fruits of my karma, then the misconduct of body, speech, and mind is reduced because one has a moral fear that if I do wrong things, I'll pay the price for it. So there's a reason behind each of these contemplations, and you can see how they help. I had also mentioned to you roughly in passing about the contemplation about reducing the attraction of the body. Okay? This was the contemplation called study of the 32 parts of the body, reflection of 32 parts. This is another thing which is very frequently chanted in our sessions. And the whole, I've written only this brief, this whole of it says that we reflect on the body from starting from the top of the head to the feet, sole of the feet, which is engulfed by skin, and we reflect that inside this body, covered by the skin, there's nothing really beautiful, intrinsically beautiful. And what it is there in the body, these are the things in the body. So we chant it, Athevasmin Kaye Kesa Loma Nakha Danta Tacho. This is the meaning of that. What is its body? These are the 5 things which are visible from outside. Head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, and skin. And the rest of the things are not directly visible, but they are key parts of the body. The flesh, the sinews, bones, kidneys, and so on. And there's a typical diagram shown here. So we can see this diagram and reflect. This is what is inside the skin. What is the beauty in them? And why do you feel we have to, and what kind of beautiful smells come out of the body? And we know we have to prevent them from coming out by suitable covering up with deos and perfumes and all that you have. So the intrinsic attraction of the body is diminished by this contemplation. So for people who are really become addicts, maniacs of sex or sex addicts, or are really unable to control their lust, this is the kind of, and since monks are supposed to be celibate, they're supposed to contemplate it very regularly. So you can see the impact of that if you just read it once slowly and touch each part of the body, your hair on the head, your body hair, your nails, your teeth, and your skin, which is what is visible. And you can see how much effort we do in keeping these worthy of appearance. And how much, I think, $1 billion industry works on handling the hair, the nails, the teeth, and the skin. Probably one of the biggest industries in the world. Just to keep up the appearances, prevent aging from showing its effect. So these are the type of cognitive trainings which are done, which are based on truth, not based on assumptions or based on positive thinking or hope for the best kind of situation. And there are various reflections which are suggested. For example, reflections on different types of perception. One is a perception of inconstancy, which means change, perception of impermanence, which is reflected upon like what we did with the body, with the breath, with the body sensations. They're changing. And then we reflect on the changes, gross changes in the body, how they happen in our thinking process, in our feelings, in our thought processes, in our perceptions, and in our various levels of sensory consciousness. They're all constantly changing. Similarly, the perception about not self, that these 5 khandhas, they don't belong to me, they are part of nature. So we contemplate on it in various ways. Similarly, on the unattractiveness of the 5 khandhas of the body, which just now mentioned. Then the drawbacks of sensory pleasures. And if you are indulged in sensory pleasures, we discussed it once. What are the kind of difficulties you have? Then the perception of dispassion, that something which is unattractive, which has drawbacks, why should you be passionate about that? So you develop dispassion towards it. And then you understand that anything which is compounded which is made up of substances by conditionality, that by itself can never be satisfactory because conditions are not within our control. So we talk of undesirability of all fabrications means something which is fabricated, which it doesn't exist in a standalone fashion. Then there are methodologies suggested for handling various difficulties. For example, if there's intrusive thoughts are coming again and again and again, somebody is suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder or some kind of thoughts coming again and again. So there are various practices which are mentioned. The most fundamental practice is to be mindful. Be mindful that a thought has arisen and then let it cease naturally because thoughts are also impermanent. So we sit quietly, meditate like we were doing, and whenever a thought arises, we just look at it and see this is thought of anger, this is thought of love, this is thought of hatred, this is thought of lust, and then look at it, and in due course it will fall away. That is the basic teaching. But it may not happen because if the thoughts are very powerful, you may not be able to observe it without reacting to them. Then various kind of firefighting strategies are suggested. Switch to an opposite and incompatible thought. If you are developing hatred, switch to a thought of friendliness towards somebody. If you are developing lust, switch to a thought of unattractiveness. You can look at something which is really unattractive and ward off the thought of sensual lust. And the another is to ponder on the harmful consequences of excessive thinking or obsessive thinking, then ignoring the cognition and distract oneself. That is the one. Just forget about it. If some bereavement has happened and you're getting very overwhelmed by anguish and pain, think about something else. Forget about it. Go out and play, or go out and for a long walk, and do something so as to distract oneself. Then if you are more wise, if you have that ability, then you can reflect on removal of the cause. Why is it that I am feeling sad? Or why is it that I am feeling angry? And you investigate. There will be behind that some cause, some aversion, some kind of expectation which is not fulfilled, some kind of attachment to something. And then you recognize, oh, I'm feeling unhappy because he called me that you are too fat. Typical example with students or young people. Or he called me, you are like a pencil. No, it's just a statement. And what is the cause of that? Cause of that is identity with the body. Suffering happens only when we identify with the body. And if you have wisdom, you'll say your body is a condition. It arises because of conditions. And so many factors are responsible for the state of my body. So I don't really need to take it personally. We keep on saying it's not me, not mine. Then why am I getting worried? If somebody calls me names, somebody calls me fat or thin or whatever. Of course, if I feel genuinely I'm too fat, and then I can work on it and reduce my body weight. Or if I feel I'm too thin, I can do it. But that's of my own volition, based on my wisdom, not because somebody else is saying so. And then if nothing happens, suggestion is given that you can apply forceful effort to stop that thought. Sometimes the obsessive thoughts can be too dangerous. A thought is coming, I should hit him, I should hit him, I should take revenge, I should take. To prevent that thought from materializing into action, what is suggested that you force. So one of the methods suggested is that you take your tongue and put it on the palate and crush your teeth strongly and crush the thoughts so that the thought doesn't arise. So you make a forceful effort to crush the thinking because the thinking can lead to disastrous consequences. So under those conditions, this is what is suggested. So you can see there is a whole bouquet of methodologies suggested to handle intrusive thoughts which are not within your control. Some thoughts are coming again and again and again, and they have the potential of causing you to act very unwisely and harm yourself and harm others. There is a typical problem of behavioral disorders. And the thoughts are not within control. And you get into hyperactivity, or you get into violence, you get into bullying. So how do you control them? These are the methods just suggested. Then there's another thing suggested for removing the annoyance. If you're angry with somebody, how do you remove that? Well, that's various methods suggested. And that anger can be mild to extreme hatred. So different methods are suggested. First method is practice loving kindness. So somebody who is making you angry, can you practice loving kindness towards him or her? Very difficult, isn't it? For that, you need to have an understanding that if somebody is misbehaving with me, then that person must be really in a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, because he's having such negative thinking processes. And I know from my own experience that when I have negative thinking, I suffer. So in order, when you see somebody doing negative thinking, criticizing you unfairly, then you can develop loving kindness towards him, you can have compassion towards him, because you realize that that person is really actually suffering, and that person is ignorant, he's not able to understand what he's doing. So you send him good wishes. So you practice good wishes for him. As we do in the after at this end of session, what do you chant? May you be free from animosity, may you be free from ill will, may you be free from anxiety. Now, this is something which is very benign. If you develop that kind of habit pattern, then at least you will not get annoyed with him. So this is how we develop loving kindness, which is beneficial, mutually beneficial. You develop compassion, may you be free from suffering. So you develop those qualities. Then the third suggestion is you develop equanimity, which means you take an attitude of balance. Okay, this person is shouting at me. Let me think. What if he is criticizing me? Let me see. What is he saying? Is that criticism valid or invalid? Invalid. If it is valid, I actually thank him. Thank you. We pointed out my mistake. If it is invalid, we say, sorry, you're wrong. It ends. You've been able to analyze the criticism in an equanimous manner. And that is what does the least damage to you and to others. Then forgiving, forgetting, and ignoring the person. The typical methodology is followed even in modern psychology. Then the last way is law of karma. You reflect on law of karma. That this person is, I'm getting irritated with this person. And if I continue this irritation, it is an unwholesome mental state. And it will produce an unwholesome result on me. So irrespective of how that person is behaving, if I get angry, I actually harm myself. And not only I harm myself now, I harm myself in the future, because this negative thinking will produce its effects in future. So this deflection on law of karma is a very helpful thing in removing the irritation and anger and a kind of annoyance we may have with certain people, with certain situations, and so on. And there are very interesting stories available in the Buddhist canon of how Buddha used to handle them. I will just give you one more. The story of a Kosa Bharadwaj. It was a Bharadwaj clan was a very high elite Brahmins in that time. And this gentleman was the head of that Bharadwaja clan. And he had large number of his sons, his nephews, his daughter-in-law. One by one, they went to listen to the talks of Buddha and got converted into Buddhism. So he saw his whole family slowly and slowly giving up the traditional Brahminical practices and following the teachings of the Buddha. Some of them became monks, others started practicing meditation in the home and given the traditional practices. So he really got furious that this person is harming our culture. So having really reached the end of his patience. He goes, the old man goes with the staff in his hand, and he thinks that I'm going to break this person's head because he's not going to listen to me for doing such harm to our society. So he goes there preparing for being more and more angry with him. And as he approaches the Buddha, he's sitting and giving a talk or something, and he starts abusing him right and out. You idiot, you shaven headed beggar, you don't do anything, and you convert people, and you are spoiling, you are a shame on the society. You're begging for food and asking my family to beg for food is very bad, and keeps on ranting against him. And Buddha is quietly listening to him. And then when he's done with it, so he says, "Oh, old man, steps finished?" I said, "Yeah, finished." "What do you mean by finished?" So he says, "Old man, do you get any guests in your house?" So of course the guests will come to my house. Why are you asking this foolish question? At this? Why are you not replying to my abuses? Why don't you reply to them? So he says, "No, if the guests come to your house and they bring some gifts," he said, "Yeah, they bring sometimes. And if you don't take the gifts, what will happen?" So the gifts will remain to them. What is this? This is a stupid question. People say you're such a wise man and you're asking such stupid questions. He says, "Yeah, this is exactly what I'm saying. You came here to my monastery, you're a guest, you brought some gifts, you're trying to give me, I don't accept. Your gifts are with you." And that man is stunned. He says, "What kind of a man is this? I abuse him," and he says, "I refuse to accept your abuses. This I refuse to accept your." He said, "Hey, how come on, Gautama? What is this? How do you know that how do you develop this capability of not accepting abuses and gifts?" So he says, "Come on, I'll teach you. Sit, and I'll teach you meditation." And eventually, he also gets converted, and he becomes a monk, and he eventually becomes fully liberated. Now that's the power of compassion, power of loving kindness, power of equanimity. A enlightened person knows that he's trembling, old man is trembling with anger. Now, I don't need to make him more angry. He's already enough angry. So he develops compassion for him and very quietly removes all his sense of grief and sense of kind of agreement against him by pointing out that it's a way of life he is propagating. He's not propagating any particular religion which is an antagonism with what he is doing. There are so many stories. I don't want to bother you, but what I'm saying is that this is the way the Buddhist psychology operates, how it uses it to develop uh, methodologies of, I would say, Buddhist therapeutic treatment, which are mostly cognitive therapy coupled with meditation. So you couple the meditation with the right view, with the right way of thinking, and then most of the difficult mental states can be handled. You might have heard about the story of Angulimala. I don't know if you know. Have you heard this? Angulimala was a robber. I mean, he became a robber. He's not a fundamentally a robber because of certain complications, certain it's a long story. For certain reasons, where he was in a Gurukul and he was a very bright student, and his fellow students conspired and they wanted to kind of show him in the bad light of the teacher, but teacher had great love for him. So they conspired to create a suspicion in the mind of the teacher that his name was Ahimsak, is actually having a illicit relationship with your wife. So that created tremendous anger in the mind of the teacher. And in order to teach him a lesson, he said, "Okay, at the end of the teaching, at the end of the study period, students give certain offerings to the teacher. That used to be the Guru Dakshina kind of concept." So he said, "You get me 1,000 fingers of human beings." And this boy, this young man now, said, "Okay, this is what I'll do." and he starts killing people and taking out their fingers. So that's why he got the, and he would make them into a garland. So as to remember how many I have cut. And as he used to put that garland of fingers, which is called Anguli Mala. That's how he got the name Anguli Mala. So it became a terror, it became a terror in the whole of the region of Savatthi and the Kaushala kingdom. So he was so strong that, and he used to live in forest. Anybody who was crossing the forest, he'll accost him and kill him, take out his finger and put it in his garland. So as he was done, he had done with almost 999 murders. He killed them. One more was needed, and then Buddha intervened, and he went to the forest where he was there. Once he came to know, he went to the forest. All people were saying, "Don't go down with it. It's okay. Let me go and set him right," because you could see that there was a potential of goodness in him still with this kind of models. So he goes there and confronts him in a in a manner which would be appropriate to him. Firstly, he uses his psychic powers. And the Angulimala was known to be a very fast runner, he would run very fast. So Buddha is walking ahead, walking, and Angulimala is running to catch hold of him. But he uses his psychic powers to make sure that while his legs are moving, he can't move further. He gets stuck to the ground. So it's like a treadmill. He's moving on the treadmill. So this person, Angulimala, says, what's going on here? And he says, I'm keeping on running, and this person is, I'm not able to catch him. What is this? So he shouts at him, said, "Oh, monk, stop." So Buddha says, well, Angulimala, I have stopped. When will you stop? So you say, what are you talking? You are walking and you say you're stopped. And I'm not walking and I'm stuck and you say you're not running to stop. It's not good. Monks are not supposed to tell lies. Why are you telling lies? So he challenges him in a different way. He says, yeah, of course I have stopped. I have stopped from doing all unwholesome actions long back. But you're still doing it. You're killing people. That's a highly unwholesome action. And the impact of those words coming from a saint was so much that he really got shaken up. So, no, yeah, that's true. And he says, but what can I do? I've done so much of crime that I can't go back. There's no way. And he says, no, there is a way. Come with me. Become a monk, and I'll train you to be free from this whole action of trying to be killing people and settling scores with them. And he becomes a monk, and then he trains him properly over the years, and he becomes fully liberated. And then when he's liberated, he has to now depend on people to get the food. So he goes for alms in the same villages. And people see him and they still think he's same Angulimala. And they beat him up, throw stones at him, bleeding. But he says, I was vastly misled, but now I'm not. I can understand this is the fruit of my karma, but don't do that. You are also earning wrong karma by hitting me. And that's how the transformation took place in him, merely by proper training. So there are so many such stories of people who are transformed by the practice of proper teaching, proper counseling, you can say, and meditative practices, so as to clean the mind of the impurities. Now, this mindfulness practice has not only been um, uh, useful in the past, it has now been appropriated in the present moment. As you might be aware, the use of mindfulness-based therapies is slowly gaining power, very great prevalence in the West. It started in 1979. I think I'll just show you this.
This one virus is killing your business, and that virus is
Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
The typical its number is now in millions. It's an old video. So this practice of mindfulness, which we have been practicing for all this while, mindfulness of breathing, mindfulness of body, and of thoughts. As the thoughts arise, become aware and just don't react to that. This has been found to be very helpful in handling the various kinds of mental difficulties. And we have a series of methods which have been developed over the years. And I'll just mention a few of them for the sake of completion. And they are now called as mindfulness-based interventions. And they're used in a variety of ways. Mindfulness-based stress reduction is one of the earliest attempt at it. Is a combination of various things, various practices. It has been used to help in chronic pain, in recovery from cancer, in anxiety, depression, and other chronic issues. And there is dialectical behavior therapy, which is used for borderline personality disorders, eating disorders, and so on. Then ACT, which is used for anxiety, depression, substance dependence. And the most recent probably is the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, which has been found to be extremely helpful in reducing recurrent depression, because it's very well known that depression, if once treated, it comes, more than 90% of the people will come back again with the problem. If treated, for example, pharmacologically, then within more than 90% of have another episode, and then it keeps on going on and on. So when you combine it with the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, then the reduction in the repetition, the recurrent depression frequency has been substantially reduced. So we can see the application of part of the Buddha's teachings of mindfulness in with modern therapeutic interventions. But there is always a possibility of complete use of Buddha's teachings, which of course needs people who are practicing that. If you are practicing good meditation and if you have a good understanding of Buddha's teaching, then you can really integrate it in your clinical practice. What has been done, I'll just share it with you. First is the mindfulness-based stress reduction. This is the program which is mentioned in that short video. It's treating depression and other chronic issues, as I mentioned already. Now, the key difference is that it's more like an educational program rather than a therapeutic program. And it's the one which format has been formalized is an 8-week program where there are weekly group meetings, 2.5-hour classes per week, and 1-day retreat between sessions 6 and 7. And then there is a homework given. And there are instructions on formal techniques of meditation, body scanning, and yoga. This is the integration of yoga and mindfulness practice. Yoga for flexibility, bodily movements, and giving some energy to the body. And that also is done mindfully. When you do stretching or various postures, you can also be aware of the body sensations simultaneously, so that your attention remains on the body. And that's what we call as the mindful yoga. Then mindful breathing, we've already discussed. We have been practicing it for some time. It helps to tranquilize the mind and keep the mind focused on the task at hand. And the object could be various sense objects. It could be breath, it could be physical object, it could be different objects of different shapes. In the classical Indian tradition, statues of gods and goddesses have been used for focusing meditation, so that you can use them for concentration. You can use mantras of various kinds so that the concentration is developed. The key factor of which helps in therapeutic has a value is the mindfulness of thoughts. That when you're practicing, for example, mindfulness of breathing, thinking process happens automatically. So rather than getting lost in the thoughts, you just observe them and see, oh, there's a thought of anger or thought of greed or whatever. And then just stay with it without doing anything. We stay with the thought, be aware of the thought and aware of the body. And with that method, the thought eventually loses its energy. Because it gets energy is given by us by focusing constantly on the thought and indulging in it. If you stop indulging in the thought, it won't get energy and it will naturally dissipate. So that is the thing. It's called, buzzword is given by worry surfing, which means you treat emotions like a wave which is about to hit you. But it will arise and pass away. It is basically an understanding of impermanence. That even if a grief is arising, be brave and just sit. Grief is arisen and passed away, which essentially means non-identification with the thoughts. The real problem with behavioral problems or mental problems is that the person identifies with the thoughts personally, takes them to be my thoughts, depressive thoughts or hyperactive thoughts or suicidal thoughts, and then he takes them to be true, rather than thinking them as just a thought which has arisen and it will pass away. So that's the whole difference between mindfulness of the thoughts and indulging in the thoughts. And that's the training which is needed of the kind which we have been doing. And basically recognizing the impermanence of phenomena. Then body scan meditations, which we have been doing, is trying to see here. And then it is compliance coupled with visualizations of various kinds for people who are having certain difficulties of association with certain situations. Then there are various aspects of mindfulness like eating, mindful walking. So when you're eating, you're mindful of what's happening. We had seen a video, if you remember, of mindful eating. So what are the various aspects of mindful eating? Then walking mindfully. How do you walk mindfully? So that you're not lost in your thinking, but you're aware of every step as you're following the path. Is any questions? I see something.
We hadn't seen a video around mindful eating.
it again.
So we hadn't seen a video around mindful eating.
I thought we had shown it in the class. No? You had given you a link for that. No?
No, sir.
Which video did you see? Okay, I'll pick it up. I'll pull it out. Just wait. Give me a minute. It's a video from Harvard Medical School. Are you able to see it?
It's not audible, sir.
My body move. Mhm. Okay, I can do one thing. I can paste the link and you can do it yourself. Okay, that is the easiest thing to do. Other than to play with the technology. You can see the link.
Yes, sir.
You can play it on your own computers or phones, wherever you are. Just do it just now. It's a short video, 5 minutes or 6 minutes. Something.
So for that, I think you'll have to paste the link in the chat box so that we can access it right now.
Okay. And just click on that and see. Oh, you have seen that?
Yes.
So you can see how one of the methods of one of the reasons for obesity has been not eating mindfully and the kind of effects it produces on the body and eventually on the mind. So mindful eating is slowly becoming one of the best. Similarly, walking mindfully, talking mindfully, listening mindfully, which means with full attention and being aware of whatever the impact it is producing on the body-mind complex. So this is the general understanding of mindfulness practice, which is one of the, you remember, one of the factors of the Eightfold Path in Buddha's teachings. What is it called there? In Eightfold Path here, it's a part of the mental training triad. Mental training was right effort, a wise mindfulness, and wise concentration. Sati is the name, is Pali word for wise mindfulness, which means being aware of whatever is happening in the mind-body complex. Now, this has been integrated with the traditional cognitive therapies to produce various cocktails of methodologies. One is the act of acceptance and commitment therapy, which is, I just mentioned two of them. One is this, which has actually 6 components. First is to accept, which means whenever inner thoughts and feelings are there, we accept them. We don't try to change them. That's the classic main glaring difference between traditional cognitive therapy and this therapy. We don't want to supplant those thoughts with some better thoughts. Just accept them. Okay? We don't ignore them. We accept these thoughts are there. So it's an active process. And then what's called cognitive diffusion. It means becoming an observer of the thoughts rather than a sufferer of the thoughts. You separate yourself from the experience. You see the thought as thoughts and not as something happening to me. That's the real practice. Rest is the consequence of. Once you see it, then you don't see self as myself as. So the issue of non-self and not self is being invoked. Self is seen as a context, not as something fixed. And then you stay mindful of the present state of the mind, thoughts arising, and also the surroundings. So we try to, if we want, we shift attention from internal thoughts and feelings to surroundings. And then we have a certain value system which we all cherish, which are important and which motivate us for action. So you stick to them. You have a commitment towards them. And the real commitment is that we want to change our behavior on the basis of this therapy. So you can see this kind of a diagram which I took out from this article. It says there is a contact with the present moment, and whatever you are experiencing, you accept it. Then the thoughts you diffuse in the sense of not taking it personally and not belonging to any particular action. And then based on your values and your acceptance, you do an action so as to bring the harmony in the mind. You don't get overwhelmed by the mental states or thinking process. And this is done repeatedly, practicing again and again. Something like the mindfulness of the thinking process. When you're doing mindfulness of the body parts, then thoughts do arise. So you just try to see the thoughts also as thoughts and not take them personally. So this is the acceptance and commitment therapy. And there is similarly what's called dialectical behavior therapy. Here the focus is that you're on the understanding thought, more focus on logic and reasoning. There the focus was on experiencing. Here the focus is on logic and reasoning. So that you actually do the same thing. You become mindful of what is happening. And you understand that first you understand through logical understanding that there we need not get involved with the thinking process and take it personally. Then we have the mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy. Traditional cognitive behavioral therapy was to change the thinking mode to make it less negative. Here again, we develop the awareness of thoughts and reactions. And you notice you're beginning triggered to negativity. You remember I gave you the assignment which on this kind of a thing. What was the trigger which created a thought process? The Paticca Samutpad, sense basis, contact, feeling, and the thinking process or the Krishna arising. This is what they're in some sense trying to do. They notice when you are becoming triggered into negativity. Incidentally, none of you have, except I think Praveen has submitted all the 4 assignments, others have not. So tomorrow is the last date. Please don't delay it beyond that, because I'll not be available then. So what does it say? The mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, that you develop their awareness and acceptance, which is basically what we have been doing, practice of meditation. Don't try to understand the thought and what's going on, but actually see this is the thought that is arising, and you can see this is the trigger which causes this thought. And more our awareness is, more and more we're able to trace the triggers, then we can be more. Initially, all it means is to be more careful. Oh, this is my trigger, so let me be careful. And the thought arises, you allow it to go and pass away. So you don't get into the negative, what they call as thought spirals. And you disengage from it by becoming aware of it. And this is coupled with, of course, medication wherever it's needed. So your medication plus this and combination of them has been found to be extremely helpful in treating recurring depressions. It is now formally recommended by the psychiatrist associations. So we close this with some quotations from the traditions, which also bring out the similar aspects. The quotation from Rumi. How does he reflect on the thinking process? Just read it out for yourself. Maybe one of you want to read. Could you read? Diksha, can you read it out for me?
Yes. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
I can see this, of course, is a theistic notation being said in that sense of guide from beyond. But if you see the effective, what is being said, it is essentially accepting whatever happens. Whatever thought arises, whether it is joyful, whether it is depressing, whether it is mean, or whether it is exotic, whether it is truthful, whether it is helpful, just see them, treat them as guests and let them go. Guests can't stay forever. Don't make arrangements for them to stay with you, which means don't give them enough food. Typically, people say if a guest comes and you want him to get out, don't give him food. He'll not stay for a long time. Similarly, to these negative thoughts, don't give any food. But feed them with your own inputs, and they'll be out. This is one quotation. Another is from Viktor Frankl. You must have heard about him. So just read that also, maybe next year you can read it.
Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom.
So what does it mean? When there's an external stimulus, your senses meet an object, and before you respond to it, there's a small gap available. Mental gap, mental space is there. And in that mental space lies your freedom. If you can choose your response rather than getting reactive, you become active. you act on the situation with help wisely rather than reacting to it in an automatic manner. And that's where the freedom lies. This is essentially again talking of the same principle of being able to observe the arising of thinking process, arising of mental contact of the senses with the sense objects. When contact happens, so many phenomena happen. And if we are aware of them, then we can train our mind so that it doesn't get overwhelmed by the feelings which arise on contact. Okay? So I think we'll close our formal discussions today. For any more questions and discussions on meditation, we'll meet tomorrow. Okay. I had written to Sunit that tomorrow being Saturday, I hope there will be some classroom open in the department. So please talk to him and make sure that the classroom is open. Okay, I'll try to be there by 9:30 and we'll finish by 12 or something of that kind. So whatever questions you have about the course or about the utility of these discussions, and then we can sit and meditate for somewhat more time rather than few minutes, and maybe sit for an hour and meditate and see, then understand how no questions? I'm not able to
Sir,
hear you.
your video, like, I think the connection went away for a bit. Was it the same for everyone?
Okay. Any questions if you have, anybody? I hope tomorrow people will be there and I won't be waiting for all of you to come. So let's meditate for some time and then give you a detailed instruction on how do you do practice of loving kindness. Actually, there are the whole practice, if you do full chant, is about half an hour or so. So we do it in a systematic manner, and you may find it a bit strange the way it is done, in the sense that we remember, for example, when we say, till now we have been saying all beings, may all beings be done. But in the actual chant in the scripture, all beings are defined. All beings in the ghost realm, all beings who have sense of self, all beings who are trapped in this world, all women, all men, all enlightened person, all unenlightened persons, people living in the Deva realm, people living in the hellish realms, and people who are in any other realm, all realms people. Then we say, may they be peaceful, may they be free from animosity, and so on. And then we extend it even further. All beings in east direction and south direction, north direction, south, west, northeast, northwest, so that and upper direction, lower direction. So you have to identify 10 directions. And we say, may all the beings in this direction be happy, all these beings, all these kinds of beings. So if we are very good meditators, we remember, okay, if we remember no people who are living, for example, in the eastward direction, I can remember them, I call them to your face, and I wish them, may you be free, may you be free from illness, or free from suffering, or whatever you want to say. You know? Then we say it for all the directions. And then we go in further, we say all the beings who are living on earth in all these world systems. There's a concept of Chakravala, which means galaxies. Chakra means the wheels. So the ancient people could know that there are wheels of world systems are in the form of wheels. So presently we call them galaxies. And the people like Buddha bird system, beings who live on sky, and may they be happy and peaceful. And so in this body. So that's how the practice is done. Is it clear to you? I must speak and actually you can listen to what I'm going to say. Mm. I'll first show you the script of the chanting, which is a part of our chanting book. So that you read it first, quickly have a good glance, so you'll get an idea what exactly I'm saying, because I'm just saying in Pali and not. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So we start with this. May I be free from animosity, ill will, anxiety, and various. Then we talk with same. These are the usual things which we have been doing. Mata, Pita, Acharya, Brahmacharya, and Sadhana, and so on. Then all beings. Then we say all beings were living, all beings were who breathe. Then beings who are in different forms of existence. All enlightened being, all not enlightened being, all devatas and deva realm and human beings, all those who are falling in the hell realms, may they all be free and so on. So we don't exclude anybody from that. Okay, and then same thing is done about remembering the karma principle. See, this is the practice. First four are they called practice of loving kindness. This is the practice of karuna, compassion. People are suffering, so we want them freedom from suffering. This is the practice of what is called mudita, or appreciative joy, empathetic joy. People are happy, we want them to remain happy. And this is the practice of equanimity. Equanimity is based on the understanding of law of karma. So that we don't get worked up on seeing people suffer or on people getting jealous of people who are doing well. Then in various directions, say Puru Disha, Paschim Disha, and so on, all the 10 directions we talk about. And then we refer again to the same, all classes of beings. May they be free from suffering and animosity and so on. Then free from suffering, free their property be saved and protected. And then all the beings are inheritors of their karma. And then we talk about from the uppermost realm of existence to the lowermost realm. Avichi Nark is the lowest hell, assumed to be that. So in all the beings in these range and in all these galaxies, the beings who walk on the earth there, in those various galaxies, then we talk of beings who are living in the water, all the fishes and whatever you can think of. And then beings who are living in the sky, the birds and so on. So you extend your domain of compassion and kindness to all existence. So that's the kind of practice which hell or heaven, no exclusions. Okay? Are you up for it or is it too much?
Yes, sir, up for it. Sir, for tomorrow, can we also do something about,
Yeah,
as you
tomorrow
said,
we'll do this. Yeah,
meditation on death also.
I'm not sure because when I asked yesterday, many people didn't say yes. So I don't want to.
Sir, four
I don't
people
want-
were there.
I don't want to end on a note that some of you are so you start crying there. It can happen, because that can be very strong. So if some of you are sure they can do it, we can do it now rather than doing tomorrow. But I'm not sure that you'll be able to manage it. क्योंकि कल भी मैंने देखा पहले कुछ लोगों ने हाथ खड़े किए फिर वापस बंद कर दिए. And then I thought I can understand. Generally, women have a difficulty in handling that. Because young people these days anyway have a difficulty in handling. They want to be positive thinkers, isn't it? So there's a problem. I'm not sure whether if everybody agrees, I'll do it. So it's no problem. I've been doing it in our group. But there also I realized that some people were we did announce in advance. Tomorrow we have 3 days contemplation of death. So those who wanted they came, others didn't come. That's fine. But in a class, if I do it and some people are uncomfortable, no problem. Okay. So this is simpler. This is very convenient. Doesn't create any problem. At the best, you may get tired, but it won't create any negativity. Okay, should we do that? Good. If I recite it in Hindi, will you understand, or some of you don't understand Hindi? Hmm?
So
Is it
we'll
okay?
be able to understand in Hindi.
All of you can understand?
Yes, sir.
Then it becomes simpler for me. Panjomi Kanigomi Sukhi Attanam Parimarami Nagar se mukto द्वेष से मुक्त हो चिंता से मुक्त हो सुखपूर्वक अपना संरक्षण कर सके. So when you chant that, we create an aspiration in our mind of that kind. Nanamata Pitu आचार्य च ज्ञातिमित्ता च स ब्रह्मचारिणो च अवेदाहोन्तु अव्यापञ्जाहोन्तु अनिगाहोन्तु सुखी अत्तानं परिहरन्तु. When I say mere mata pita, so you can remember your parents, bring your parents' picture in your mind's eye. Similarly for others. Mere mata pita, acharya, sambandhi, mitra, sadharmachari, which means those who are following the path of teaching Dhamma with me. प्यार से मुक्त हूँ, द्वेष से मुक्त हूँ, चिंता से मुक्त हूँ, सुखपूर्वक अपना संरक्षण कर सके. सर्वे सत्ता सर्वे पाना सर्वे भूता सर्वे पुंगला सर्वे अत्ता भो पर्यापन्ना सर्वाइत्यो सर्वे पुरिसा सर्वे अरिया सर्वे अनरिया सर्वे देवा सर्वे मनसा सर्वे विनिपातिका अवेदाहोन्तु अव्यापञ्जाहोन्तु अनिगाहोन्तु सुखे अत्तानं परिहरन्तु. सभी जीव, सभी प्राणी, सभी प्राणीभूत, सभी व्यक्ति, सभी व्यक्तित्व में आबद्ध लोग, सभी स्त्रियां, सभी पुरुष, सभी आर्य, सभी अनार्य, सभी देवता, सभी मनुष्य, सभी नरक में गिरने वाले लोग, डर से मुक्त हों, द्वेष से मुक्त हों, चिंता से मुक्त हों, सुखपूर्वक अपना संरक्षण कर सके. दुःखामुच्यन्तु यथा लब्ध संपत्तितो मा विगच्छन्तु. सभी प्राणी सभी दुखों से मुक्त हों, सभी प्राणियों की संपत्ति उनसे दूर न हो. संबे सत्ता कम्मस्य का कम्मदायादा कम्मयोनि कम्मबन्धु कम्मपटिसरण यं कम्मं करिष्यन्ति कल्याणं वा पापकं वा तस्य दायादा भविष्यन्ति. सभी प्राणी अपने कर्मों के स्वामी हैं. कर्म ही उनकी विरासत है, कर्म ही उनकी योनि है, कर्म ही उनका बंधु है, कर्म ही उनकी शरण है. जैसे भी कर्म करेंगे, कुशल अथवा अकुशल, वही उनकी विरासत बनेंगे. पश्चिमाय दिशाय पश्चिमाय दिशाय उत्तराय दिशाय दक्षिणाय दिशाय पश्चिमाय दिशाय पश्चिमाय दिशाय उत्तराय दिशाय दक्षिणाय दिशाय हेठिमाय दिशाय उपरिमाय दिशाय संबे सत्ता संबे पाना संबे भूता संबे पुंगला संबे अत्ता भाव परियापन्ना संबाइत्यो संबे पुरुषा संबे अरिया संबे अनरिया संबे देवा संबे मनुष्या संबे विनिपातिका वीराहोन्तु अव्यापञ्जाहोन्तु अनिगाहोन्तु सुखीयत्तानं परिहरन्तु। पूर्व दिशा की ओर, पश्चिम दिशा की ओर, उत्तर दिशा की ओर, दक्षिण दिशा की ओर, दक्षिण पूर्व दिशा की ओर, उत्तर पश्चिम दिशा की ओर, उत्तर पूर्व दिशा की ओर, दक्षिण पश्चिम दिशा की ओर, नीचे की दिशा की ओर, ऊपर की दिशा की ओर रहने वाले सभी जीव, सभी प्राणी भूत, सभी व्यक्तित्व में आबद्ध लोग, सभी स्त्रियां, सभी पुरुष, सभी आर्य, सभी अनार्य, सभी देवता, सभी मनुष्य, सभी नरक में गिरने वाले लोग वैर से मुक्त हों, द्वेष से मुक्त हों, चिंता से मुक्त हों, सुखपूर्वक अपना संरक्षण कर सकें। दुःखामुच्यन्तु यथा लब्धसम्पत्तितो मां विगच्छन्तु। सभी प्राणी सभी दुखों से मुक्त हों, सभी प्राणियों की संपत्ति उनसे दूर न हो। संबे सत्का अम्मस्य का अम्मदायादा अम्मयोनि अम्मबन्धु अम्मपटिसरण यं कम्मं करिष्यन्ति कल्याणं वा पापकं वा तस्य दायादा भविष्यन्ति। सभी प्राणी अपने कर्मों के स्वामी हैं। कर्म ही उनकी विरासत है, कर्म ही उनकी योनि है, कर्म ही उनका बंधु है, कर्म ही उनकी शरण है। जैसे भी कर्म करेंगे, कुशल अथवा अकुशल, वही उनकी विरासत बनेंगे। ऊर्ध्वं यावभवङ्गा च अधो यावविच्युतो समन्तचक्रवालेषु ये सत्ता पटवी च अव्यापज्या निवेरा च निर्दुःखा च अनुपन्दवा। भवाग्र तक ऊपर के लोग, अभिची नरक तक नीचे के लोग, सभी चक्र वालों में जो भी प्राणी पृथ्वी पर रहते हैं, वे सब द्वेष से मुक्त हो, उपद्रव से मुक्त हो। उद्धम याव भवंगा च अधो याव अविच्युतो समन्ता चक्रवालेषु ईसत्ता उदके च अम्ब्या पंचा निवेरा च दुखा चे अनुपंध। भवाग्र तक ऊपर के लोग, अविची नरक तक नीचे के लोग, सभी चक्र वालों में जो भी प्राणी जल में विचरण करते हैं, ईश्वरी द्वेष मुक्त हों, वैर मुक्त हों, दुख मुक्त हों, उपद्रव मुक्त हों। उद्धम या भवंगा च अधो या विच्युतो समन्ता चक्रवालेषु ये सत्ता आकाशे चरा अम्ब्या पंजा निवेरा च दुखा चे अनुपंधवा। भवाग्र तक ऊपर के लोग, अविची नरक तक नीचे के लोग, सभी चक्र वालों में जो भी प्राणी आकाश में विचरण करते हैं, ये सभी द्वेष मुक्त हों, वैर मुक्त हों, दुख मुक्त हों। सर्वे सत्ता सुखी होन्तु, सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनो, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा किञ्चित् पापमागमः मा किञ्चित् सुखमागमः मा किञ्चित् दुःखमागमः। सभी प्राणी सुखी हो, सुरक्षित हो, सभी प्राणी सुख देखे, कोई भी पाप कर्म न करे, शोक में न पड़े, दुख में न पड़े। Good, thank you. You can open your eyes. So we close our session for the day. Okay. So see you tomorrow. It will be in the department, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll be there at 9:30. Namaste.
Yes, sir. Namaste. Thank you, sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Please try to bring everybody